Hey guys, what's up? My name's Calvin Atkinson. I am from Anime Amigos, and I'm going to be starting a series of vlogs as of today on this series, Tintin The Animated series. Now I want to stress a few ground rules before we start. This is about my personal experience with Tintin, so that's kind of how I'm going to dictate how I give my thoughts on these. It's going to be no references. It's going to be nothing about the order that we see them on Netflix or anything like that, because I want to go through these things in the order on the box set, which is the order that the graphic novels were ordered in, and that makes more sense to me because that's what Hergé intended with when he made Tintin when he made all the Tintin books. He intended Tintin's story arc to go down this route, so I think the episode should reflect that. I'm also going to be doing these as one episode. I'm not going to be talking about them as two individual parts, because again, that's how they're presented on the box set. I think that's a better way to do it, because these are only split into two parts for television broadcasting standards in the 90s. And I will talk about the individual the difference between the graphic novels to the episode. However, I don't think this will play too much of a factor, because none of the changes really drastically affect the story. They're all kind of just there. They're kind of just minor differences, usually for what the politics was like at the time. So let's kick. And as for the movies, I'm not sure if I'm going to do all the movies. I'll definitely do the Red Sea Shark. Not the Red Sea Sharks. That's a completely different one. I'll do the Lake of Sharks. I think it's called the Lake of Sharks, because that one is a different story altogether. The other two animated films are just other adaptations of stories that already are on the box set. So and they don't really change it all that much. I might give a brief thoughts on that one, and I may do the Spielberg movie because I do have an opinion about the Spielberg movie. So I've just finished rewatching Tintin America. This is the first time I've watched. This will be the first time I'm watching these for critical reasons, and it was actually rather interesting because Tintin America was always one I didn't mind when I watched it when I was a kid, and even when I bought the box set again when I was a teenager, I didn't mind Tintin America. I have read the graphic novel, but again, that was one I came to later in life, because I never really rated Tintin America that much when I first saw it. I have distinct memories of it, because when I was in French class, the teacher would often show Tintin to help us learn some French, and I remember two of the ones he showed. He showed two episodes, and one of them was Tintin America, and he never showed it with subtitles. So we had to sort of half guess it based on what we knew from what we're learning in French. Incidentally, I will not be covering any of the other dubs. I'm only going to cover how the English dub sounds. I'm not going to talk about any of the dubs, mainly because the Blu-ray doesn't actually contain any of the other dubs or subtitles for any other language, which seems incredibly stupid considering that Tintin has a real European appeal. You know, he's like the Indiana Jones of Europe. But to get to the actual episode, I genuinely think this is one of the worst. And I know we're at this is the very first one. I know it's the very first one, but I don't care. This is pretty bad. All you consider, there's just nothing happens. This entire episode, nothing really happens. It's just Tintin goes after a gangster. Gangster tries to kill him incredibly over-elaborate fashion, which is kind of weird considering that the gangsters in that time. We're talking Al Capone, the time Al Capone was around, because Al Capone is the main villain in this one. They never actually say his name, but it is actually meant to be Al Capone. He's called Al Capone in the graphic novel. Apologies, I've got an itch on my shoulder, so I'm probably going to end up doing that most of the vlog. But Al Capone is the character in the graphic novel. He's actually not the main villain in the graphic novel. That's another big difference. He's only there at the beginning. Tintin takes him down, says to a police officer, "I've just taken down Al Capone," and the police officer doesn't believe him. Because of course Tintin's still portrayed as being a very young reporter in the graphic novel at this point in time. I think he kind of gets his aged up. He gets his aged up as the series goes on. They never quite specify that. But with the problem is he takes them down so easily, and it makes you wonder how the hell the police didn't manage this. If organised crime was this easy to take down, the police would have no trouble, and everything would be solved really quickly. But to go back to the point, which went missing ages ago, it just becomes a very boring episode as a result. It's so dull and uninteresting. Everything about it just feels weird. Just feels like it's going through the motions. It's never allowed to be a Tintin story. It was a Tintin story at the time, because Hergé had this very romanticised view of things. Hello, Chloe, would you like a vlog? Come on, Chloe, come be in the vlog. Do you like Tintin? You like Tintin. Tintin. It's kind, and with this episode, you kind of get the sense this was Hergé's romanticised view of Europe at the time. We kind of saw this with his Land of the Soviets. Land of the Soviets graphic novel, which is maybe the first one, but it's not actually a very good graphic novel. In fact, I don't think Hergé really got into his stride until around maybe I think around the Cigars of the Pharaoh and the Blue Lotus. I think those were the kind of times when Hergé kind of got the idea of what Tintin's character was, what a Tintin story was going to be like, and how he was going to get it, and how it was all going to flow. He doesn't quite have it in those early ones, and this is one I actually think they should not have bothered adapting this story at all. I really don't think they should bother I don't think they should have bothered. I certainly don't think they should have made this the final episode, because it makes no sense for this to be the final episode, because it just makes you wonder where's all the other side characters that have been established much earlier in the series. Where have they all gone? But to paraphrase, but that's really where my issue stands. It is such but it's also the fact that none of the villains are really intimidating, none of them are very memorable, and most of the enemies of the villains in Tintin are very memorable. I mean, even the one that I think is the worst, which we'll get to much further down the line. Even the one which I think is the worst is not that bad when it comes to the villain department. The villains are actually kind of memorable in that, but not for the right reasons. But with this one, it's so. I'm trying to think of the right word. I'd say pointless. Pointless is the right word. This whole thing feels really rather pointless. It doesn't have much there's not much going on, and it's just a kind of done. So, and admittedly, it might have been. I mean, the way the episode ends actually sets up the idea that Tintin's going on another adventure, and that's good, and that's the end. And that's a nice way to end the series. But frankly, I just don't care for it. I don't care for this episode at all. This might be the worst one just because of the fact it seems like an episode I could easily just skip every time. In fact, I didn't really enjoy watching it for this one. This was like 40 minutes out of my day. I've got tons of time to watch anime in that time. Don't get on the table, Clover. Come on, off the table. Messing with my feet. Don't hiss at me. But if you watch this first, I think it's fine. If you watch this as the first episode, it's kind of fine. It doesn't make much sense. Doesn't really work, but it's a fine enough episode. The fact this was the season finale, I think, is what makes this episode worse if you watch it in that order. So I would actually, if you're going to watch the box set, I'd say watch it for that reason. If you're not got the box set and you're watching on Netflix, I wouldn't watch it for that reason. I just skip it because it doesn't do much. In fact, it doesn't really play anything in the Tintin canon. I think one character might turn up a little bit down the line, and I don't think they play up the fact that Tintin's Belgian really in this episode. In fact, none of the episodes they really play up the fact Tintin's Belgian. They never specifically state that, with the one exception of one episode, they never state that Tintin's actually Belgian. It's only in Crab with the Golden Claws when someone says, "Where did you come from?" and he knocks him out saying Brussels originally, because he thinks he's James Bond for some reason. But as for the performances, actually, I can't remember the name of the actor who played Tintin. I'll have to correct that, but I actually think he's a good choice to play the character. I wouldn't be surprised if Jamie Bell actually took a lot from his performance in the Spielberg movie, because it very much gets the character from the graphic novel down. A lot of people say Tintin's a rather bland character, but I've always said, yeah, he's meant to be like that because he's meant to play off all the other characters around him. That's what he is. That's what makes this episode really bad. It's something that makes the other episodes kind of up before Captain Haddock's introduced a bit off, but this one particularly is. This one has the big issue even bigger, which is Tintin's not great by himself. He's actually better with a whole supporting cast, and as a result, he ends up talking to himself quite a lot. But it's also the fact he has someone to play off, and that makes him much better as a main protagonist. With this episode, there's no side characters. It's just Tintin by himself, Tintin and Snowy. It's just Tintin and the dog, and the dog's not even going to give you a funny line in this one, because we don't hear Snowy's, which is a big mistake of the series as a whole. They never really give Snowy's internal monologue, which was always one of the funniest parts of the graphic novels. So with the graphic novel, I mentioned Al Capone's the villain in the graphic novel, and that's rather weird choice. But he's a rather weird choice for the graphic novel. But then again, Hergé was trying to get some real world politics in the whole thing, and it didn't work. And I think the fact they don't mention him as being Al Capone is both a benefit because it means you can have this guy as the main villain, but it's also a negative because it means that this villain is even more unmemorable. The only other changes were that there was a few minor changes here and there around there, but there was also they cut out completely the Native American characters from the episode because they were incredibly racially insensitive, which is par for the course with Tintin at this time. It's the reason that Land of the Soviets wasn't adapted because, of course, it's early 90s, the Berlin Wall's coming down. I can't. When was the series? Either the Berlin Wall was coming down, or it was already down by this point. By the point the series is out, so it's obviously not going to be sensitive to have an episode about the Soviet Union. As for the and Tintin in the Congo is just incredibly unreadable because of the depiction of black people in it. But it's but yeah, this is one of my is my worst episode, which is incredible. But that's only because I think it's so bland and so forgettable. That's my thoughts on it in a nutshell. If I'm honest, though, I think there's one episode that's worse because it just took everything that was established. Because it was around the time everything was established, everything was good, the formula's there, and he uses this formula to make a story that's absolute crap. So when we get to that episode, we'll discuss that. But it's a case of, do you want your episode to be bland and boring, or do you want something where it's actually got the structure, it's got the cast and all that, but it tells a really bad story? That's take your pick. Well, I'll discuss the differences. I'll discuss why I think this isn't the worst episode. I think another episode is the worst later on down the line. But that's my thoughts on Tintin in America. And next I've got Cigar of the Pharaohs, which should be fun because that's if you're watching on the box set, that's your first appearance of Thompson and Thompson. So I will, as Rain says, thank you very much for watching.